So it gives me just nothing but great pleasure to introduce Mr. David Lewis, who's going to go ahead and take us through his session on leadership.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. How are you all? I know I'm no David Anderson, but I'm David Lewis, so you're going to have to just put up with me this evening. I'm very unprepared, so I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm not dressed properly. They came to me 30 seconds ago and said, guess what, you're on, so I'm on. Let me tell you a little bit about David Lewis. I have been in the automobile business since 1979. I started selling cars 33 years ago at my local Chevrolet dealership. I was 16 years old. My family did not own the dealership. My next door neighbor did. I actually started in the dealership a number of years earlier, weekends, Saturdays, after school, stocking parts, moving cars around, cleaning cars, and I progressed through the dealership. When I was 20 years old, I had become the general manager of the dealership. When I was 21 years old, I ventured out and I tried to buy a dealership myself. I had secured all the money, I had found a dealership, but the manufacturer said, no, you don't have enough experience, so you're going to have to get a little more experience, and then we will give you a franchise. I was a little perturbed, upset, and I said, well, that'd be fine, and I started to do a little bit of consulting. In 1986, I started to do some aggressive consulting, and 26 years later, I have probably consulted in 5,000 dealerships and trained thousands and thousands of salespeople. I have a very unique twist on the automobile industry. I use a word that I'm going to use a lot in the next 40, 45 minutes, and that word is logical. I don't think what we do in the industry makes a lot of logical sense. For example, when I go to dealerships, I ask them a question. Every time I meet with salespeople and sales managers and GMs and dealers, I ask them, why should I buy a car from you? If I live in your market area, why should I buy the car from you? I've got all these opportunities to buy. And I hear over and over again, well, we've got a great product, we've got a great selection, we're community oriented, we have a good service department, you'll like me, I'll take care of you after the sale, and we'll give you a good price. Well, you know what? I've got a serious problem with everything that individual or those individuals told me. The problem I have is that I hear that every dealership I go to. Every dealership I go to asks the same question, and I hear the exact same answers. And that doesn't make sense to me. Why would we keep doing the same thing from dealership to dealership? Well, it gets worse. I then would go and I'd ask a salesperson, who's been selling the least, who's got the least amount of experience? And I'd get a couple of hands go up, and they'd say, oh, I've been selling cars for 2 months, 3 months, 6 weeks. And I'd ask them, did they train you at the dealership? And they'd say, yeah. Did they teach you the selling steps? And they'd go, yeah. And I'd say, tell me if these sound familiar. Meet and greet, inventory, selection, demo, walk around service, walk, negotiate, close. And they'd go, yeah. I'd say, okay. How many cars does the average salesperson here in the dealership sell? And they'd say, 8, 10 cars a month. How many dealerships do you think the average salesperson at the other dealership sells? And they'd say, 8, 10 cars a month. And then I'd ask them, what steps do you think they follow? And they'd say, the same ones. Well, that kind of doesn't make logical sense to me. Then I would ask them, who's been selling cars the longest? And I'd get somebody 15 years, 20 years. Let me ask you a question. I know we've got a different group of people. Has anybody been in the car business for 25 years? I have 25-year veterans. Please, show me a hand. What steps did they teach you 25 years ago? The same ones. Meet and greet, inventory, selection, demo, walk around, service walk, negotiate, close. We haven't changed these things in 25 plus years. And that doesn't make logical sense. It gets worse. How many cars did the average salesperson sell 25 years ago? 8 to 10 cars a month. So in essence, we're doing the same thing over and over and over again and getting the same results. And that doesn't make logical sense. Does anybody here, I know we're in Las Vegas, play poker? Let me see, who plays poker? I play poker. Would you play poker with me with your cards face up and my cards face down? No, you'd say I have an unfair advantage. Well, guess what? The consumer that walks into our dealerships has that unfair advantage. You know why? Because we haven't changed. We still do the same steps we did 25 years ago. They know our steps. Go on the internet and Google how to buy a car. They'll teach you our steps. They'll tell you what to say, when to say it, how to say it, why you should say it. Doesn't make sense. I don't want to sell 8, 10 cars a month. You see, to me, second place is last place. I don't want to be in second place. I want to be in first place. I have another concern. Are buyers liars in our industry? I think everyone's going to say yes, buyers are liars. Well, people don't lie to me when I sold them cars. And you'll tell you why. They didn't lie to me because I never asked them these silly questions that we ask that produce lies. Customers don't lie because they want to lie. They lie because we give them the opportunity to lie. We ask questions like, when are you buying a car? Who else is involved in the buying decision? What's your budget? How much do you want for your trade? And they lie to us. And they lie for logical reasons to get better deals. If I had a car and I knew it was worth $10,000 and you asked me what do I want for my trade, I'm going to tell you $14,000. And then you're going to structure your deal based on my lies. If I came into the dealership and my budget was $400 a month and you asked me, so what's your budget? Guess what I would tell you? $250. And then you'd show me cars for $250 a month. I don't want a $250 a car a month. I wanted a $400 a month car. But you asked me, I lied to you, you showed me the wrong car. I left. See, this doesn't make logical sense. I want to tell you a story. This story will take about 20 to 25 minutes, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Some of you are going to leave this room after you hear this story, and I'm going to change your world. I'm going to change the way you sell cars. I'm going to change the way you do business in your dealership. 25 years ago, my wife and I decided we wanted to buy a new car. So you know what we did? We went shopping. That's what people do. They shop. Before we went shopping, we sat down and established a budget. And what are we going to spend? We decided we could afford $350 a month. We also had a trade. We had a 6-year-old Audi with 80,000 miles on it. So like a good consumer, I went to the book, I looked up what the Audi was worth. It was worth $2,200 actual cash value. Based on that information, my wife and I decided to go shopping. We had no kids at the time, so we went and looked at all different kinds of cars, coupes, sedans, utility vehicles, trucks, sports cars. And we knew we'd buy a car in about a week to 10 days. Every time we pulled into a dealership, I would say 4 things to my wife. I'd turn to my wife and I'd say, sweetheart, don't forget, we're not buying a car today. We're paying cash. The Audi is worth $6,000, and please don't show too much emotion in front of the salesperson. Now, the first 4 things that I told her were lies. I mean, the first 3 things. They were lies. I'd buy a car today if you were strong enough. I couldn't afford to pay cash, but I was always told, tell the salesperson cash, get your best deal, then tell them your financing. And if you were going to ask what my trade was worth, I wanted us both on the same page. So armed with that information, my wife and I went shopping. And every time we'd leave the dealership to continue our shopping, I would turn to my wife and I'd say, sweetheart, let's go look at a Mercedes. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It was purely an egotistical reason. I was new in business as a consultant. I had friends graduating college with big degrees, getting big jobs in fancy cars. And my wife would say, no, we can't afford it. Let's not tease ourselves. And I said, okay, you're right. So we shopped for about a week. After about a week, we narrowed down what we wanted to buy. And I called the salesperson at the dealership that had the car we liked. And I negotiated a price and agreed to buy the car. I gave him a credit app over the phone. And we set up delivery of our new car for Saturday at 1 o'clock. Saturday morning rolls around. We got out of bed. I got up early. I had nothing to do. I had 3-4 hours to kill. So I said to my wife, you know what? The curiosity is killing me. I'm still going to go look at the Mercedes for a couple hours. I'll come and pick you up at 12 o'clock. We'll go pick up the new car. She said, no, I'll go with you. Then we'll have lunch. Then we'll get the car. And I said, okay, great. So my wife and I jump in our car and we drive down to the local dealership. Who here in the room, please, do I have any salespeople in the room? Salespeople sell cars. I have sales managers. I have some sales managers in the room. I want to paint a picture for you. You tell me what you think. Here's the picture. At this point in time, I'm 23 years old. It's Saturday morning. I'm unshaven. T-shirt, jeans. My wife is 21. Looks like she's 17. Ponytail, sweatsuit outfit. We pull up at a dealership that sells Mercedes, Bentleys, Rolls-Royce, Aston Martin, and Maseratis. 2 young kids beat up old car dressed like that. Do you think a salesperson in that dealership wanted to take us as an up? Probably not. I did the same thing. I turned to my wife and I said, sweetheart, we're not buying a car today. We're paying cash. The Audi's worth $6,000. Please don't show too much emotion in front of the salesperson. We got out of the car. A salesperson, a gentleman in his mid-50s, walked up and did a meet and greet. Folks, when you meet and greet a customer, don't do what everybody else does. You're setting the tone for average and normalcy. He walked up to me and says, hi, welcome to the dealership. My name is John. And you are? And I said, David. He said, hi, David, it's nice to meet you. And your last name? Well, when he asked me for my last name, I kind of paused for a second, because I didn't even know my last name. So I paused. He said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't like to ask people I don't like to call people by their first names without their permission. I said, oh, okay. Well, my last name is Lewis, but you can call me David. He said, well, Mr. Lewis, it's very nice to meet you. Mrs. Lewis, I assume? And she said, yes. What do you think he called me from that point forward? He called me Mr. Lewis. You know what this guy did? He put me on a pedestal. He made me feel special. I'm thinking, this is the way they treat people that buy Mercedes and Bentleys and Rolls Royce. And I kind of liked it. This is what's interesting. I'm 50 years old now. I still get a rise out of it when people call me Mr. Lewis. I still like it. I play golf. I go to the country club. What do they say? Hi, Mr. Lewis, it's nice to see you. Mr. Lewis, we have your car ready for you. Mr. Lewis, you'll be joining us in the rural. And I like it even better when I've got my friends and they're standing right there next to me. At this point in time, when customers come on the lot, are they very defensive or are they non-defensive? We know they're very defensive. If you hit me with a barrage of questions, are those questions going to make me more defensive or less defensive? They make me more defensive. So what do? You hit me with the questions. So what's your budget? What's your timeline? Do you have a trade? You pay in cash? You finance it? How much do you think your trade's worth? How much money do you owe on your trade? Who else is involved in the buying decision? And you know what? You sound like everybody else, and you're making me more defensive. This salesperson asked us 3 questions, 3 qualifying questions, and not one of these questions made me lie to him, and not one of these questions made me more defensive. Here was his first question. Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, are you looking for a new or used car today? I'm not going to lie about the answer to that question. I said, we're looking for a new car. He said, great. Are you looking for a Mercedes line, Bentley, Rolls Royce, Aston Martin, or Maserati? Now, would I lie about that question? No, I said the Mercedes. He said, great. The coupe, the sedan, or the utility vehicle? And I said, the sedan. He said, great. Let's go look at some cars. What more does this salesperson need to know? See, we've lost focus of what we sell. We sell 3 things. We sell our dealership, our product, and our personality. You start budgeting me, you're going to budget me into a car you think I can afford. See, I have a size 11 foot. You can't sell me a size 9.5 shoe. And that's what we do all day long. He walked us over to a row of cars, and he started us at the cheapest car in the category they had in a new Mercedes sedan. It was the 190E. He said, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, this is the 190E. It's the base Mercedes sedan. You'll never guess what this salesperson did next. He shut his mouth. Hardest thing for us to do. He shut his mouth. My wife and I walked over to this row of cars. What do you think is the first thing that I looked at on this row of cars? I went to the window sticker. I mean, that's what everybody does. I looked it up and down. I'll never forget, it was $29,000 and change. I looked in the window. I went to the next sedan. I looked at the sticker. I looked in the window. I went to the next one. I looked at the sticker. I looked in the window. See, I just sent this salesperson 2 very clear messages. Number 1, I kind of like the car. If I didn't, I would have said something. Number 2, it's within my price range because I never flinched. I actually, when I got to the 3rd car, went back to the 1st car to look at the sticker again because I wanted to know why the 3rd car was $34,000 and the 1st car was $29,000. I was doing my own comparisons. We have a problem in our industry. We don't understand the importance of a demonstration drive. There is nothing more important than a demonstration drive. But yet when I ask dealerships, what is your average penetration on demo rides, I hear the most ridiculous number, 30%, 40%, 50%. And then I ask, if you have a 50% demo penetration, what is your closing ratio on the 50% that don't drive the car? Guess what the closing ratio is on the 50% that don't drive the car? Anybody like to take a stab at it? It's 0. I turn to the dealer, I say, Mr. Dealer, half the people you spent money to get into this dealership, you ain't selling a car to, because you can't get them to drive the car. Why would you waste your time and money? Now, we know that some people are hesitant to drive the cars, and we know why they're hesitant. They're hesitant because they didn't come to buy. They came to look. And if they drive the car, they're afraid they're going to feel more committed, and internally they're going to fall in love with the car, and then they're going to want to buy it, and they didn't come to buy. John slowed this whole process down. You see, he asked us a question that made all the logical sense in the world. We only came to look. So my wife and I are looking at these 190E sedans, and John asks us, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, would you like to sit inside one of these cars to see what the interior of the car is like? Now, what do you think most people are going to say to that question? Yeah, it's not a threatening question. Would you like to sit inside to see what the interior is like? And we said, sure. He asked us if there was a particular color we liked. We said, yep, we kind of like silver. He said, well, I'll get the keys for the silver one. He went inside the dealership, he got the keys, he came out, he got in the car, he started the car up. He pulled it 10 feet out of the spot, he got out of the car. My wife was standing right there when he got out. He said, Mrs. Lewis, would you like to sit behind the wheel first? And she said, okay. And she got in behind the wheel and he shut the door. He walked over to the passenger side, he opened the passenger door. He said, Mr. Lewis, would you like to join her? And I said, okay. And I got in and he shut the door. He let us sit inside this car by ourselves for about a minute, totally uninterrupted. No pressure, no nothing. Guess what? Within that minute, my wife and I decided we didn't like this car. Doors were paper thin, we felt squished. We got out of the car, we said, John, we don't like it, it's too small. Is this a good sign or a bad sign? It's a great sign. Why would you want to shoehorn me into a car I don't like? He said, no problem, let me put it back and take it to the next size up. He put it back in the spot, he walked us across the row, he said, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, this is the 300E series, it's more of a full-size sedan. Somebody please tell me, what was the fourth thing I told my wife not to do? And here's what this woman says, as she points at the car and clearly and loudly says, oh, that's exactly the size I actually wanted. What's the first thing I look at on this car? I go to the sticker. I'll never forget the price. I will never forget the price. $44,441. I even made a comment. I wanted to see how he was going to react. And I said, wow, these get expensive, don't they? And he said nothing. So I looked inside the car. I went to the next one. I looked at the sticker. I looked in the car. I went to the next one. I looked at the sticker. I looked in the car. Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, would you guys like to sit in one of these to see what the interior is like? And what do you think my wife said? Oh, sure. He said, great, silver. We said, fine. He got the keys. He came out. He started up. He pulled it out. My wife got behind the wheel. He shut the door. I got the passenger side. He shut the door. He let us sit inside the car by ourselves for about a minute. We touched and felt and did everything people do when they're by themselves. He then got in the back seat of the car. Now think about this. My wife is sitting behind the wheel of this automobile. This car is running. My wife is only 5 feet tall. Here's what he does next. He says, Mrs. Lewis, why don't you take your left hand, put it down alongside the seat, you'll feel some buttons. Why don't you adjust the seat so it's comfortable for you? And she did. He said, Mrs. Lewis, this car has a tilt-and telescopic wheel. There's a knob on the steering column on the left. She adjusted. He said, here's how you do the left hand outside remote mirror. Here's how you do the right hand remote mirror. Why don't you press number 1 on the keypad on the door till it beeps? All those settings are set for you. We'll set number 2 for Mr. Lewis. He said, it's a little stuffy in the car. Let me show you how to turn the air conditioning on. How to set the temperature control, the recirculating air. Here's how you turn on the rear defroster, the front defogger. Here's how you turn the heat on in the wintertime. Mrs. Lewis, what's your favorite radio station? 107.1. Here's how you turn the radio on. Here's how you tune it to 107.1. You can do the rest on your own. But here's how you set the treble, the bass, the speakers. Here's how the power sunroof works. He explained on the steering wheel how she can control the radio from all the buttons. How to turn on the cruise control, setting, all that. How to turn on the headlights, the intermittent windshield wiper blades. He did everything. This is what's so ironic, it doesn't make logical sense. Your salespeople, or you, already do this. You already do an internal presentation. But when have we taught you to do this? At delivery. Why would you sell me the car only when I buy it? Now, my wife is sitting behind the car. The car's running. Seats are set, wheels set, air's flowing, mirrors are set. What do you think he's going to ask her next? Would you like to drive the car? Folks, you can get 90% plus of your people to drive these cars. Slow it down. Think about what's important to them, and they'll follow your process, as long as you don't sound like everybody else. If you're asking me to drive a car within the first 10, 15 minutes, my guard's going up and I'm getting defensive. She said yes. Now, when I go to dealerships, I ask salespeople, how long is your average drive? How long is the customer behind the wheel from the time they pull out of the dealership to the time they pull back in the dealership? What do you think is the average drive time we take customers on a test drive for? Somebody. 5, 10 minutes. Fantastic. You're going to sell me something for A $30,000 car in 10 minutes. I spent 10 minutes reading a menu at a new restaurant to order a $15 meal, and you want to sell me a $30,000 car. We teach our salespeople to do planned demo routes. That doesn't make sense either. Now we know why our rides are only 10 minutes long, because we plan it to be 10 minutes long. Planned demo routes involve you telling me where to drive. Mr. Lewis, take a right out of the parking lot. Go to the third light, make a right. No, that's the second light. There you go, very good, third light. Now go to the second light and make a left. You don't have to go left lane, it's going to come up on you fast. I can't enjoy the car. And this is what's ironic about this. This is not why planned demo routes were developed. Planned demo routes were developed 30 plus years ago, because 30 plus years ago, the cars weren't reliable when they broke down. 30 plus years ago, we didn't get gas from the manufacturer, and our dealer would put a drop or two of gas. And 30 years ago, I didn't have a cell phone. So someone came up with the idea, look, if everybody takes the same route, not if, but when you break down or when you run out of gas, you stand on the side of the road, when the next guy comes by on his demo ride, you flag your hands up, we all get in that car, we all drive back to the dealership together. When was the last time you had a car break down on a demo ride? When was the last time you had a car run out of gas? When was the last time a salesperson took a demo ride and did not have a cell phone attached to their hip? Doesn't make sense. My wife pulls to the exit. She stops the car, she leans back, she asks him, where do you want me to go? Why does she ask that question? Because everybody had a planned demo route. Every place we went, they had a planned demo route. He asks her, Mrs. Lewis, are you familiar with the area? She said, yes, I grew up here. He said, great. You could drive the car wherever you would like. She was shocked. Really? Oh, absolutely. She asks, can I drive the car up Camp Meeting Road? You see, Camp Meeting Road is about 10 miles away, and then it's a road that goes up a mountainside about 15 miles. You see, she's thinking, her parents live up on the mountain. She's got this 6-year-old, four-cylinder Audi, and you can only imagine what it sounds like up the hill. She wants to see what this car sounds like up the hill. This is coming from a woman that's going to be picking up a new Nissan Maxima in about an hour and a half. She wants to drive this car up the hill. What do you think the salesperson says? He says, absolutely. My wife's thrilled. She starts driving. Now, this became really cool now because I didn't realize we were going to have a contest while we were driving the car. We actually had a contest. Here's the contest. Let's see who can talk first. See, my wife's driving, she's not talking. I'm sitting in the passenger side, I'm not talking. I'm waiting for the guy in the back seat to ask the typical questions. So, how does it ride? How does it feel? How does it maneuver? How's the visibility? Of which my wife would have very calmly said, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But you see, he didn't say anything. So after about a minute and a half of dead silence, I lose the contest. I couldn't take it anymore. The silence was killing me. So I started talking. And you know who I talked to? I talked to my wife. And you'll never guess what I asked her. I said, how does it ride? How does it feel? How's the visibility? How's the maneuverability? I mean, it's a logical thing to talk about. I wasn't going to turn to my wife and say, so what are we doing for dinner tonight? We weren't going to talk about the Nissan we were going to pick up in an hour. And my wife answered me differently than he answered him. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes into the drive, I asked, hey, is there enough time for me to drive? He said, sure. We pulled over to the side of the road. We switched seats. I got in behind the wheel. My knees were to my chest. I had to rearrange everything. He says, Mr. Lewis, when you press number 2, those are set for you. I said, great. I started pulling out. Guess who starts talking to me while I'm driving the car? My wife. And guess what she says to me? Oh, you're not going to believe this. Rule number 4 was what? Don't show too much emotion. Here's what the woman says to me. Doesn't this drive nice? How about that visibility? Isn't that seat comfortable? Isn't that steering wheel kind of cool? What is she doing right now? She's selling me this car. 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes later, we pull back into the dealership parking lot. I don't think there's one person in this room, I know we're all in different industries, not one person in this room that doesn't believe 90% demo penetration, 40-minute demo rides, we're selling more cars. That's a given. I pull back into the dealership parking lot. I love giving salespeople an opportunity to put their foot in their mouth. I kind of thought it was entertaining to me. So you know what I did? I asked him, I said, hey, John, where do you want me to park the car? Assuming he would say what? Park it in the soul row. Oh my God, don't ever say that to somebody. Do you realize what you've just done? You've taken a very relaxed posture and you've put it so high up you'll never get it back down. You've warned the customer. Now the pressure begins. Don't say that. He said, Mr. Lewis, park it wherever it's convenient. And I said, okay, fine. And I pulled it into a parking spot. We got out of the car and he did a walk around of the car. Well, gonna lie to you, wasn't very exciting. Matter of fact, it was boring. And it took me a couple of years to realize why such an inspiring guy with such a great product, why this walk around was boring. And then it clicked in my head. It was boring. I'd already heard this walk around 8 times all week. You see, the walk around on the Nissan was no different than the Mercedes, or the Honda, or the Chevy. It's all the same. You all make the same walk around presentations. Sure, you might pick out something that's unique, but for the most part, you make the same presentations. And I'm okay with it, because the manufacturer wants you to do it. But you see, he did 2 presentations. He did a second walk around. He did the one he had to do, and then he did the one that he knew was going to inspire us. Here's what he did. He asked us a question, and he knew the answer before he asked it. Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, how important is safety to you in an automobile? My wife says, oh, it's very important. He said, great, let me tell you about Mercedes. See, Mercedes is very committed to your safety. Whenever you're in their car, they want you safe. For example, they've learned that most people get injured in automobile accidents from the shattering of glass. There's an accident, your head hits the windshield, so the external hits the windshield, the glass shatters, it comes inside, it causes you grave bodily harm. And then there's a problem, because now there's a big gaping hole in the front of the car, and you can be thrown out of the car. But not in a Mercedes. See, in a Mercedes, we put a special kind of glass in our car, where if God forbid there was an accident, and your head hits the windshield, or something external hits the windshield, this glass is designed to not shatter, to cushion the blow, and stay intact in the frame of the car, keeping you inside, safe and secure. And my wife said, wow, that's pretty cool. Now somebody tell me something interesting about what he just told us. It's called safety tempered glass. Government regulated this. Every car had it. But what does my wife think? It's only on the Mercedes, because he's the only one that mentioned it. I come to your dealership. I go shopping. I leave, I buy something else, something smaller, lesser value than your car. You're shocked. And I say, well, it's a safer car. How do you mean it's safer? Well, it's got special glass, special aluminum, special rollover protection. And you think about it, you go, wait a minute, I think our car has that too. Well, you shouldn't have told me that. You see, you're too busy telling me what everybody else tells me. You're too busy telling me about airbags and ABS brakes. I already know all that stuff. Tell me something I don't know. Make your car stand out. Make you stand out as someone who cares about me. At the end of the walk-around, he's done his 2 walk-arounds. I'm now waiting for the line I love. The line we have taught salespeople that also makes no logical sense. Who here in the room is a sales manager? Let me see my sales manager. Sales managers, where do you want to negotiate the deal? Out on the lot or at the desk? At the desk. Who else is the manager over here? Where do you want to negotiate? On the lot or at the desk? Here's what we train our salespeople to do at the end of the demo ride. So, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, if we can come together in terms of numbers, are you ready to buy a car today? And guess what your salesperson just did? He just asked me to buy the car. On the lot, where it's rainy, sleety, cold, hot. I'm thirsty. I'm getting tired. He's asking me to buy the car on the lot. And I don't understand why. And here's the funny thing. When you survey customers, guess what most people say? No, not today. And then the salesperson stops and he has to ask him why. And the customer says, well, I don't know, you're the first place we've been to. We just started our shopping process. And guess where this forward momentum just went? It just came crashing down. And it gets worse. Because then when they go to the desk and they say my customer wants to leave, and you're going to ask why. And he's going to tell you, it's the first place they've been to. They just started their shopping process. You're not very excited right now. This doesn't make logical sense. First of all, you're not done selling. And second, why would you ask me that a lot? There's only one thing you want to know before you walk away from that car. And here's the ironic thing about it. You all know the answer. All you want to know is, do I like the car? You don't need to know if I'm buying it yet. You're not ready to ask me to buy it yet. Here's how John did it. So, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, does this car meet all the qualifications and expectations you're looking for in your shopping process? Was he asking us to buy the car? No. He wanted to know if we liked it. Because if we didn't like it, there was no sense of moving forward. Most people are going to say yes. We said yes. He said, great. Now, here's another thing I find interesting. When you ask dealerships what percent of your salespeople do a service walk, it's in the 10 percentile range. And then you got some that say, oh no, we do it quite a bit. And then I ask them, okay, when do you do it? And they say, oh, usually after we sell the car right before F9. I say, okay, so let me get this straight. In your dealership, your service department is a private club. I have to have a membership to see it. And the membership is the purchase of a car. If I buy the car, you show me the club. If I don't buy the car, you don't show me the club. Well, that doesn't make logical sense to me. So John said, or asked, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, does this car meet all your qualifications and expectations? And we said, yes. Very simple. He said, great. I'd like to show you something we're very proud of here at the dealership. And he started to walk. And guess what my wife and I did? We followed the guy. I mean, it's a logical thing to do. We walked into the service department. Let's face facts. The service department is not very exciting to most people. Don't spend a lot of time in there. I call it the walk and talk. You keep walking and talking, and I'll keep following and nodding. Once you stop and you give me some long explanation about something, I'm going to get bored. So we walked and talked and walked and talked. Then he did something that is absolutely amazing. And when I teach this to dealerships and they start doing this, they see an immediate increase in sales. He said to us, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, I'd like you to be one of our service writers real quick. Sell your dealership. He walked us over to a service writer and he said, Bob, this is Mr. and Mrs. Lewis. Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, this is Bob. He said, Bob, the Lewises are looking at a Mercedes 300E. Now I'm going to give you this conversation almost verbatim, because I'll never forget it. He stuck his hand out to me, and he said, hi, Mr. Lewis, it's very nice to meet you. That's a wonderful car, isn't it? And what do you think I said? I said, yes. He said, Mrs. Lewis, doesn't this car drive wonderfully? You're not going to believe what my wife says. I call this her indoor sexy voice. Here's what my wife says to the service writer. You ready for this? She says, that's what she, could everyone in the back hear that? She says, I thought I was floating on air. He played right in there. He said, oh, Mrs. Lewis, the 300E is a great car. As a matter of fact, I bought one for my wife 5 years ago. She still drives it today. She still loves it. I'm sure you're going to love it too. He said, I'm sure John has gone over our service department with you. I just want to mention a couple of things real quick. We are open Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 5:30. We do have Saturday hours from 9 to noon. We do recommend an appointment for any maintenance or service work, but if you have an emergency, you bring the car right in, we'll take care of you right away. When you're here, doors are shut, beep the horn, blow up the door, get you inside out of the elements. While you're waiting, we have a customer lounge, coffee, magazines, TV, but if you would like a ride home or to the mall, we'll gladly give you a ride. We'll even come and pick you up when the car's done. Folks, who's going to be the primary driver of the car? And I said, she will, it's going to be her car. And he said, great, and he turned his attention to her, and he said, Mrs. Lewis, 2 things about the car you need to know. Number 1, make sure you check the oil in the first 30 to 45 days of ownership. Sometimes new cars burn a quick quart of oil. Don't be alarmed. Number 2, if you want this car to run forever, and literally this car will run forever, all you need to do is a lube oil filter every 3 months, 3,000 miles. Now, Mrs. Lewis, we do them here at the dealership for $19.95. Jiffy Lube does it for $19.95. We don't care where you take it, just as long as you do it on a regular basis. Oh my God, you're never going to guess what my wife says to this guy next. Here's what she says. She says, don't worry, I'll make sure it's done on a regular basis, and I'm sure I'll be bringing it back here for you guys to take care of. Well, Mr. Lewis, it's very nice to meet you. Enjoy the car. I said, thank you, I will. Mrs. Lewis, enjoy the car too. She said, thank you, I will. And John said, why don't we go inside the dealership? Now I'm going to stop my story right here. It goes on a little bit. I'm going to stop it right here. By a show of hands, how many of you think I bought this car? I did. My payment on my Nissan Maxima was $355 a month for 48 months. My payment on my Mercedes 300E was $465 a month. $100 more for 60 months. I paid $100 more and I extended it another year. Do you know why I bought this car? Because I was sold. I was sold a dealership. I was sold a car, and I was sold a salesperson. I was sold a process that was unique, that totally caught me off guard. Someone who cared about me and what was important to us more than just making a deal. And that's what car sales is all about. Now, if I have a few more minutes, I'm going to share 2 more things about this that's very interesting. I am very bothered by what we've done in the industry over the last 30 years for how we've trained our people. We are very much responsible for why our salespeople reach average goals. We are responsible for why we have high turnover. Because one of the reasons is they sell average amounts, make average amounts of money. There are salespeople out there that have been selling cars for 10, 15, 20 years at the same dealership and still sell 8 to 10 cars a month. That's not their fault. It's our fault. We have failed to educate them. We have failed to train them. Oh my God. Hire 3 new guys, let me see how they work out, then we'll decide if we want to train them. What kind of logic is that? Well, if I train them now and I invest, they're just going to leave and go work somewhere else. Well, what kind of logic is this? These are your frontline people. 3 days after we bought our car, John called us to see how we were doing. And I think most salespeople do that. 90 days later, my wife and I were sitting around the table eating dinner, and the phone rang and I answered it. And here's how the call went down. Hello? Mr. Lewis, it's John from the dealership. How are you? I'm good, John. How are you? Good. Hey, just wanted to see, how's the car doing? Oh, John, she loves it. Oh, Mr. Lewis, I'm so glad to hear that. Hey, Mr. Lewis, the reason for my call is just to remind you, the car is due for the first lube oil filter. Would you like me to set that up for you, or did you want to take care of that on your own? Gee, John, no, hold on a second. Hey, it's the guy from the dealership. He says it's been 90 days. We're ready for our first oil change. Did you want to make an appointment? John, could you do it on Thursday, first thing in the morning? Great. Click. You have an appointment at 9 a.m. on Thursday. Guess what my wife did Thursday at 9 a.m.? She got the oil changed. 90 days later, we got home from the mall. There was a message on our recorder. Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, John from the dealership. Hope everything's going well. I'm just calling to remind you the car's due for the next lube oil filter. If you'd like me to set it up for you, give me a call, take care of it. If you want to handle it on your own, I just wanted to remind you. My wife's exact words. Oh my God, time goes by so fast. I'm so glad you called, I would have forgotten. She calls him the next morning, makes an appointment, brings the car in to get the car oil changed. Guess who calls my house every 90 days? John. You see, John told me he was going to take care of me after the sale, and he did. He didn't so much take care of me, he took care of my car. See, John became an automotive liaison. Anything that needed to be done to that automobile, John took care of. At 12 months, 12,000 miles, he reminded her, this is when you want to have your tires rotated and your radiator flushed. And by the way, we do recommend the 12 months, 12,000 miles safety checkup from Mercedes. You can speak to the service writer when you get here. That cost me $600, because that's exactly what she did. She went to the service writer and says, there's some checkup I'm supposed to do. And he pulled out that laminated card. He goes, oh yeah, we do this, it's $590. And of course she said, well, that's what you got to do it. John took care of the car. He only calls my house once. If we're not home, he leaves us a message. We get the message, we get the point. He doesn't send me birthday cards on my birthday, anniversary cards with my car. He doesn't call me and tell me about specials. As a matter of fact, John never, ever, ever tries to sell us another car. He never, ever, ever asks for referrals, or who's next in your family to buy a car, or who do you know that's interested. Because you know what? As soon as he started doing that, he's a car salesman. And you know what? I'm not going to give him all my friends. But here's the funny thing. I lived in the market area for 4 years. If anybody ever mentioned to me about needing a car, I need a car, my wife, my sister, my daughter, my kid, my neighbor, I lit up like a Christmas tree for about 15 seconds. And I couldn't brag enough about John. How great he was. Personable. No pressure. Took care of us after the sale. I know for a fact over the next 4 years, 4 of my friends bought cars from John. The 4 over 4 years doesn't seem like a lot. But you know what? If he did that concept with me, you think he did it with those 4 I got? And so on, and so on, and so on. You do that for 10 years. Do you know how many cars you're selling a month? You're selling 20, 25, 30 cars a month. You're making a great living. It's a known fact. You can only sell so many cars a month off of walking traffic. I value that around 16 cars a month to a real pro. I mean, a real pro can 14, 16 cars a month off of walking. Real pro knows how to stay in touch with his customer and build a relationship. And a real pro will sell 30 cars a month. He'll still get his 14, 15 walking, but then he gets everybody else walking in and asking for him. That's what we failed to teach our salespeople. You know what we do? Same thing we did 30 years ago. Hey, gotta get on the phone for 15 minutes. Go in the phone room, go make some phone calls. Here's the phone book. Here's all the leads from Disney World. Go, go, go. Call all your old customers. I leased a Porsche 5, 6 years ago. 2-year lease. leases up, get a call from some lady from Porsche. I said I'm going to return the car. No problem, I drop it off. 2 years after that, 4 years after I leased it, 2 years after I dropped it off, I finally get a call from the salesperson. Hey, Mr. Lewis, Randy from the dealership, how are you? Oh, hi Randy, how are you? Hey, how's the Porsche? Randy, you're joking with me, right? It was a 2-year lease. I turned it in 2 years ago. Well, did you get something else? Well, of course I did, Randy. Well, why didn't you ask for me? Well, Randy, I didn't think you worked there anymore. I never heard from you. Oh, no, I'm still here. Hey, we're having some big promotions this week. Any chance you're interested in a new car today? No. Well, in the future, if you are, will you give me a call? Probably not, but I appreciate this call. Bye, Click. I have bought more cars since then. That makes logical sense. Last thing, and then we'll let you go. What percentage of the people walk onto our car lots, a salesperson meet and greets them, and the first words out of the customer's mouth are, I'm just looking. Is it okay if I walk around alone? I want to walk around by myself. It's a very common thing, isn't it? So, how do our salespeople handle it? They push us. What are you looking for? I just want to walk around by myself. Are you new, used, coupes it in, you ever I just want to walk around by myself. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll just follow behind you if you have any questions. I just want to walk around by myself. Look, do you have a car? I have a car. I'll tell you, I'll be standing right over here if you have any questions. Then every time I'm walking around, I'm looking over my shoulders and he's staring at me. And you know what? As soon as he disappears for 15 seconds, I'm out of there. Am I not? And then the manager comes out. Oh, it gets even better. Why is that guy walking around by himself? He just wants to walk around by himself. No, you get your butt out there and you help him. So now you force me back out there. Do you know why you do this? Because you don't understand me, the customer. All you want to do is sell cars. I'm okay with that. But you don't understand me, and you don't understand your salespeople. When I come into the dealership and I say I'm just looking, I'm very defensive. I'm telling you something. I'm telling you, I'm scared. You're scaring me. You've got to take this and bring this from here to here in about 15 seconds, and I'll spend 2 hours with you. And you have no idea how easy it is. I walk onto your lot and I say to the salesperson, I'm just looking. And here's my response to that sales customer, and you tell me what you think is going to happen to the customer's defensive posture. Customer says, I'm just looking. I say, I understand. You know what? Everybody's got to start their shopping process somewhere. So does that mean you don't have to buy a car today? And guess what, folks? Everybody says, no, not today. And I say, great. That takes all the pressure off me as a salesperson. I'd love to spend some time with you. As a matter of fact, we'll consider today to be purely just an informational gathering day. Now, if you see a car you like, we can still take it for a drive. And then before you leave, I'd be more than happy to get you any brochures you want and all the pricing you need so you can go home and consider our cars in your shopping process. Now, what do you think happens to that customer's defensive posture right now? It just went from here to here. And I just bought myself 2 hours. Guys down the street didn't get that. I got it. Here's the $1 million question. Am I still going to try to sell that guy a car today? Of course I am. Not now. Not in 30 minutes. Not an hour. But when I'm ready, when I've earned the right, when he's sold on my car, when he's sold on me, and when he's sold on my dealership, I'm going to ask him to buy my car. When I've earned the right to do so. Folks, we're in a great industry. We all know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. If you want to be average, and you're happy with the results you're getting, you've heard this before, just keep doing what you've always been doing. You will continue to get those results. If you want salespeople to sell 8-10 cars a month, and you're happy with that, just keep training them the way you're training them. And my promise to you is, they'll sell 8-10 cars a month. But you know what? You can spend all the money in the world on advertising and promotions. But if you still have an average sales force, you're going to have average results. Do a little bit of everything. I'm glad I had an opportunity to speak with you this evening. I was not expecting this opportunity, so I was not very prepared. So, with that said, I will come to roughly a time for questions. What do you want to do?
You know what? I think questions would be great.
Okay. Does
Do
any
you have any questions, Mr. Lewis?
any questions at all? Anything I share with you?
You know, I do. So one of the questions I have to ask is, and I can relate to your experience with Mercedes dealer. And for me, recently was when I took my wife out shopping and I made a mistake, trying to tell her another car we were going to get. And if I wish you I want a Honda. So I used to do stuff for Honda, but now it's Ford. So no more Honda, it's big Ford. And then the amazing part to me is as we were driving back to the Ford dealer, of course we do a lot of talking, right? I said to her, I go, well, if you're going to do this on your own, she said to me, I'm just going to wait till you fly out on Monday, I'm going to go buy the damn car I want. And I said to her, I go, well, at least if you're going to lease it, if it's a Honda, the residuals are good. We see the sign for Santana Honda. She was driving, exit ramp, we go to the dealership. As we pull in, we park. The salesperson is approaching us, and my wife and I are no longer speaking to each other at one time. She's walking in one direction, I'm walking in the other direction. And this salesperson makes the mistake of heading towards me. And I'm sitting here going like this. So my wife doesn't see it. I mean, the assumptions that we sometimes make as salespeople, do you see these assumptions hurting us at times?
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. The only thing that I'm going to say about this is sometimes we start in a direction and we can't reverse our direction. So it's a hard question. Should she have gone, hindsight 2020? He should have gone to her. But as soon as you did this, he should have walked right away.
The good news is we sold her car.
Well, that's...
So you did the right job. The other thing I would ask is your suggestions about being different, about doing it different than the other dealerships. I mean, what, in your opinion, what is the first thing that you look at when we all go back to our stores? What's the first thing we should look at?
Your processes and your procedures. You have to put yourself in the customer's shoes and say, do these processes and procedures do things? Do they sound like what everybody else is doing? And number two, would I be defensive in the same situation? For some of us, all we know is the car business. Some of us have never gone out and bought a car. Sometimes we have to step back. We have to study what everybody else sees in us. It's just it's a very difficult thing. Once you change the process and procedures, you do catch people off guard. Folks, there's no misbelief about this. You can get your demo penetrations into the 80, 90% range. You can get your service walks into the 80, 90, 100% range. All this is very easy. Nothing I'm sharing with you, I don't think anybody disagrees with. You all want to do it. You just have to educate your salespeople. And you have to be a good leader. You have to lead your salespeople and not boss them. You have to show them. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk. Don't go tell them to do it. Explain to them why it's important, how it benefits them. They don't care about you. They care about themselves, and that's completely understandable. Be a leader and not a boss, and people will follow you.
Thank you very much.
All right?